Hi, this is my review of Arcanum 30th Anniversary Edition. This is a role-playing game with a very interesting story. It started out as a supplement to old-school role-playing games, and then it suddenly became its own unique RPG. Perhaps you could say it is one of the most complete role-playing games out there. This book is 366 pages long. If you think you know about all of those old school games out there, many retro clones, pseudo clones, Arcanum will surprise you because of several unique races, many different professions which are the equal of classes in other role-playing games. It offers a lot of granularity while at the same time keeping simple rules, but a lot of depth when it comes to character creation and the development of those characters, the skills that they will pick along the way during their adventures during an entire campaign. Now, let's talk about the quality of both the physical book and the PDF. Let's start with the physical book. It's available as print on demand at DriveThruRPG. You can get it as a soft cover or as a hardcover. However, I would recommend the soft cover because although the hardcover books of DriveThruRPG, they will hold together, they are sturdy enough, but I've noticed that throughout the years, the page that is close to either the front cover or the back cover or both always rips apart a bit. So that looks a bit disappointing, but when it comes to softcover books that DriveThruRPG offers, they are some of the best books that I own. So if you plan to get the physical book, I recommend that you get this soft cover, in my opinion. But if you do not mind the issue that I mentioned of the page next to the front cover or the back cover, then the hardcover is also a good option. The quality of the paper is good. It's just good quality paper, not semi-glossy or glossy paper. The illustrations are in black and white. This tome looks really beautiful because of the cover that has this sort of pentagram. It looks like a book of sorcery, of witchcraft, of sorts. So it's going to be very cool to display it or to have it on your bookshelf. It's going to look great. Now let's talk about the quality of the PDF. The PDF is fully bookmarked, so it's going to be very easy for you to move through the entire document. It doesn't have hyperlinks, however. I think bookmarks are a lot more useful when it comes to moving quickly through the document. Everything is well written and explained. Everything is well organized. The illustrations are old school. They help to set the tone of the game because even though this is a new edition of that old school RPG, it has been preserved almost completely intact. We will talk more about that later on. The graphic design overall is clean, it's simple, the font is easy on the eyes, so overall the quality is exceptional. Now, let's talk about the contents. First, you have a bit of history of what Arcanum is. Arcanum started in 1983. It was released as a trilogy of books to be used as supplements in role-playing games back then. Not just Dungeons and Dragons, you could easily take material from this trilogy of books and apply it to, for example, Tunnels and Trolls. In fact, in this book, they actually give you tips on how to do some conversions for systems that are not necessarily D20 based games. However, from 1985 and then on, Arcanum combined the trilogy of books and it became its own RPG. It has a very solid structure composed of races, professions, which are classes like I mentioned earlier, a magic system, skills, a role-playing game system, a bestiary, so it's a complete role-playing game. So for this 30th anniversary edition, the entire body of the text has been preserved. The only corrections or changes are, for example, corrections of typos, grammar. The layout has been rethought. The material has been broken into a more logical set of chapters. It has been reorganized. The spells now include some missing information, and a more standard presentation has been included. You also have special skills collected together at the end of the skills chapter, and a few abbreviations have been made for the sake of consistency and modern usage. So it's basically the same old school role-playing game, but polished. Next, you have an introduction to what Arcanum is. Arcanum, in its essence, it's a rules-light role-playing game system. This doesn't mean that it's completely streamlined, just like, for example, the Black Hack. It means that the application or running of the system is very simple. However, there is a lot of depth when it comes to character creation, development, the different skills, alchemical processes, ritual proceedings. So you could say that the engine of Arcanum is quite simple, focusing mostly on rulings rather than rules, but that engine is composed of complex parts. After that introduction, you have information how to use Arcanum to enhance, boost, or modify other role-playing games, because it's still quite a modular role-playing game. It started out as this trilogy of books, like I mentioned earlier, so it still has that property of being very easy to separate into different parts to complement other role-playing games. They give you tips on how to convert professions from this system, determining the level of ability for different characters, non-player characters, player characters, between systems, how to add skills, spells, and you also have information how to add parts of other role-playing games into Arcanum, of course. So you could use stuff from Arcanum into other role-playing games and vice versa, related to character backgrounds, experience points, hit points, magical and alchemical preparations, professions and races, like I mentioned, pretty much anything. In fact, I think Arcanum is great if you have an old school type of system and you want the characters to be a bit more sturdy. The player characters in Arcanum, at least at the early stages or levels of power, they are sturdier, they are hardier, tougher. So you could use some parts of Arcanum to reinforce those player characters in other systems. After that, you have an introduction to what a role-playing game is. This is pretty standard for anyone who has already played role-playing games before. The typical, you have players, you have a game master or referee or director, you create a scenario, you create different sites to handle different scenes and episodes. I think this is a good introduction. However, I don't think it's the best. So someone who has never played role-playing games before, that person can easily get into role-playing games by using this Arcanum core rulebook, but I think that person should still watch some YouTube videos or read some websites focusing on role-playing games, because this gives you just a way in which you can play role-playing games. This introduction does its job, but I think it leans a bit more towards cinematic gameplay, and it's not going to focus on other ways of running role-playing games and focusing on specific campaigns, such as, for example, a sandbox campaign. So it depends on the player to do more research if he or she is just starting to get into role-playing games. So a good introduction, but you definitely need to do a bit more research, in my opinion. Following that, you have a short lexicon to get you familiarized with terms that maybe you have already seen, but it's still interesting to see how they apply to Arcanum. So you have terms such as the campaign, the adventure, the dice, because in Arcanum you still use the traditional polyhedral dice. You also have definitions on Encounter or the game judge, referee or game master, dungeon master. It's basically the same person, but here it is referred to as the game judge. You also have more information on turns, the player characters, if you want to use miniatures, etc. Following that, we have character creation. This is a really good system for character creation, and as mentioned earlier, you could take some elements from the process in Arcanum and add them to other character creation or design systems. First, let's take a look at the checklist for character creation. The first step is choosing a race. Choosing a profession comes next. Then you choose alignment, background, You calculate the character's renown, you assign attributes, you determine hit points, saves, encumbrance, wealth, and then you equip your character. You describe your character's appearance, of course, and you can determine the name, personality, some past history, and that's basically it. Now let's talk about the races. There are 10 races of humanoid beings, which may be used as player characters in Arcanum. Some of them are pretty standard for fantasy role-playing games, but others are exclusive of the setting. You have information on their racial abilities, their maximum attribute scores, that is, some races will get stronger than others in different areas of their building blocks. You also have information on their size, their lifespan, and the professions that they can choose. First, we have the Azir. These are a giant race of humanoids. They are descended from the Jotun, the frost giants, but are generally smaller and more intelligent than their fierce ancestors. So, by human standards, they are quite big. They do not live very long, usually to 70 years of age. However, they do not weaken as they grow older. They do not weaken as much when compared to other species and races. When it comes to their racial abilities, they are really good when it comes to strength, constitution, willpower, and charisma. They are great when carrying out saves related to strength, constitution. They deal a lot of damage when they attack. And some of their professions include gladiator, warrior, priest, necromancer, shaman. They are quite fond of dwarves. They feel as if they are somewhat related. They actually consider dwarves to be their little brothers. The Azir are very cheerful, but they are also fierce warriors. Once enraged, they are a sight to behold. Next we have the Netherman. The Netherman were once quite numerous. The so-called Beastmen are now a dwindling race. They are the product of magical experiments, it is believed, and there are several distinct subspecies of Nethermen, each created through numerous attempts at crossbreeding and magical experimentation. So Nethermen are always mammalian predators. You could find lion men, jackal men, wolf men, leopard men, tiger men, and panther men. So if you have some sort of anthropomorphic character in mind, you should choose the Nethermen as your character species. They can use weapons and tools, but they also have a savage bite and claw attack. Nethermen are generally grim by nature, tending to be impassive unless aroused to anger, and they are fiercely loyal. Some of their racial abilities include a keen hearing. They can talk with animals of the type that they resemble. They are really good jumpers, they are very stealthy, they have night vision, they are really good at tracking, and they are also quite skilled when it comes to making saves related to speed or perception. When it comes to their attributes, they are very strong, dexterous, they are quite fast, their constitution is also really good, and they are quite perceptive. Some of the professions of the Nethermen include Beastmaster, Bounty Hunter, Martial Artist, and Hunter. Next we have the Dwarves. Dwarves in this role-playing game are very different from your standard fantasy dwarves. Sure, they are still short and heavily built individuals, but they are more cheerful. They are not as grudgeful as other dwarves in different role-playing games. They also get along with the Azir, of course, and the only humanoids that they really dislike are the Nethermen, which we will talk about later on. Unlike elves, dwarves are long-lived and produce few offspring. They are dour and hardworking by nature. That also applies when it comes to other role-playing game settings, but their non-grim, non-vindictive nature is quite noticeable. Let's talk about some of the racial abilities of the dwarves. They have infravision, they have the dark tongue as a language, and they are quite talented when it comes to mining and stone cutting. That's also quite standard. They are also very good at detecting unsafe stonework and identifying rocks and minerals. When it comes to their saves, they are really good when making saves related to constitution. They are strong, they have high constitution of course, but they are also quite intelligent, they have a lot of willpower and perception. Some of their professions include Alchemist, Corsair, Priest, Thaumaturge, Warrior, Savant. Next we have the Elves. These are also quite different from other fantasy elves. They still share some characteristics. They are graceful, they are typically slender, statuesque, with beautiful features. They live quite long lives, well past 800 or even 900 years of age. And this is where they differ with other elves. They are quite revengeful. They are not forgiving. Any wrong that has been done to them, they will make sure they exact vengeance or justice in some way. And they also dislike the nether folk, just like the dwarves. You could say that these elves feel a bit like a combination of elf and dwarf. And there's also a sub-faction within them, the dark elves. They are not a different race within the species of elves. They are rather a cult of sorts. They have extreme supremacist views. When it comes to the abilities of the elves, they are really good at making saves. When it comes to dexterity, charisma, and perception saves, they have infravision, and their language is Sylvan. They are very good when it comes to stats. Their only weak point is constitution, but they have great dexterity, speed, charisma, perception. Everything is quite high. Now, when it comes to their professions, they could be druids, enchanters, sorcerers, paladins. In fact, I think that creating an elf paladin is one of the best character choices in this game, in my opinion. The paladin in this role-playing game has some very unique features to it. We'll talk more about that character class, or profession rather, later on. Next, we have the Gnomes. Gnomes are one of the two races known collectively as the Wee Folk. The others are the Hufflings. They are rather flamboyant, dressing in colorful garbs. They have beards similar to the dwarves, and gnomes are often mistaken for dwarven children. One thing that I forgot to mention about dwarves is that female dwarves in this role-playing game also grow beards. So it's a bit strange that the illustration of the female dwarf doesn't have a beard. Maybe they also cut them. Gnomes seem to be related to either dwarves or halflings, and they are quite curious. They often excel at various scientific and magical pursuits. So in most cases, they resemble other fantasy gnomes. One important thing to mention is that small creatures in this role-playing game receive some adjustments because of their size. They actually get a bonus when attacking foes that are larger than them, and larger enemies will get a penalty when they attack these smaller creatures. But of course, the small folk have some disadvantages when it comes to dealing damage and trying to reach things. When it comes to racial abilities of the gnomes, they are really good when making saves against poisons and venoms, and any check or save rather related to dexterity. They also have infravision, their language is the Dark Tongue, and they have a talent for mining and detecting unsafe stonework, similar to the dwarves. They are very dexterous, they have good constitution, intelligence, charisma, and perception. Some of their professions include Alchemist, Harley Quinn, Rogue, Spy, Witch Doctor. Then we have the Hufflings. Hufflings are subdued, tending to dress in plain clothing. They don't want to draw too much attention to themselves. They are quieter and far more introverted than their gnome cousins. Hufflings are most certainly related to gnomes, and some say that they are actually a different race of gnomes. That is, they belong to the same species, both gnomes and halflings. Halflings have their own settlements, and only the halflings that are not satisfied with the typical halfling lifestyle, they are the ones who go out and experience all sorts of adventures. When it comes to their racial abilities, they are really good at making saves related to speed, they are great climbers, they are great at hiding. When it comes to their attributes, they are dexterous, they have high constitution, intelligence, willpower, charisma, and perception. When it comes to their professions, they have limited choices. But despite that, they can be skilled priests, rogues, corsairs, warriors, and even necromancers. Next we have humans. Humans are the most common and populous of all the humanoid races that are found throughout the known world. While the majority of humans tend to center around coastal cities, towns, and villages, there are also tribes and clans. They can be found living even in the furthest inland areas. Humans vary greatly in appearance, of course, and the success of their species is generally attributed to their ability to adapt to a wide range of terrains and climates, although they are quite short-lived when compared to other species. Their strength also lies in that they get along with almost everyone. Although they do have some dislikings, for example, they do not like the Nether folk, and they have a superstitious dread of dark elves. When it comes to their abilities, you get to choose which save they are good at that is related to a certain attribute, and this save improves every 3 levels gained. They also have an experience point bonus when getting rewarded for different tasks, defeating enemies, etc. When it comes to their attributes, they are balanced. They are good but not remarkable in terms of strength, dexterity, speed, constitution, etc. When it comes to professions, humans can be members of any profession. Next, we have the Netherman. Nethermen are not a true race of beings. They are a cross between humans and goblins. Now, don't think that this is in most cases a goblin slayer type of situation. This species came to be because of a magical experiment most of the time, and then they started to reproduce amongst each other. Nethermen look a lot like humans, but they are more muscular. And like goblins, they have a skin color that ranges between tan to yellow-green to brown to black. Mottling is a fairly common characteristic of goblins, but this is generally not seen in Nethermen. And they have inherited the deep-set eyes of their goblin ancestors. And most of them have reverse eye coloration, that is, they have black with white pupils. They are an infertile sort of species. Most think that they are slowly headed towards extinction, and unfortunately, they have inherited most of the negative psychological traits of both humans and goblins. They have a tendency towards cruelty. When it comes to their racial abilities, they have a bonus when they make their saves related to strength and constitution, and also speed. In fact, the speed save bonus increases per 3 levels gained. They also have infravision. Well, at least most of the Nethermen, they have a high percentage of obtaining infravision when you create them. And when it comes to their maximum attribute scores, they are really strong, they are fast, they have good constitution and perception, but in everything else they are not quite good. In some ways they remind me of half-orcs in other role-playing games. When it comes to their professions, they have assassin, gladiator, corsair, spy, and witch doctor. Now, it's important to make clear that these are not all of the professions available for each of these species and races. I'm just reading some of them to you. Following them, we have the Selkie. They are like the Nethermen. They are not a true species as much as they are a cross between humans and Tritons. While possessing certain amphibious adaptations, Selkies are unfit for life beneath the waves. They are sent to a harsh life among the land dwellers. They have a few advantages when it comes to venturing underwater, but for the most part, they are adapted to living in dry land. They are quite human in appearance, save for a few traits of their aquatic heritage, that is, webbed fingers, those gills, and their eyes and their faces look slightly alien when compared to normal humans. When it comes to their abilities, they have good saves related to dexterity and perception only when underwater. They also have a really good bonus when it comes to speed, but only when they are underwater. They are great swimmers, and they have limited water breathing. For example, you want to remain for an hour or a bit more underwater, the Selkies can do that with no strain, no need to hold their breath. And depending on their constitution, they can remain underwater for quite a long time. When it comes to their attributes, they are really strong, dexterous, fast, intelligent. They have a lot of willpower, charisma, and perception. Their only weak point is constitution. Some of their professions include witch, necromancer, beastmaster, druid, and scholar. Next we have the Zephyr. The Zephyr are a winged race of humanoids. They are hollow-boned and slight of stature, being built for speed and maneuverability in the air. Compared to the other humanoid races, they are not strong. Skin color can range from gold to coppery brown, while hair color can range from yellow to bright red. And they literally have eyes like a hawk's. Though Zephyr will sometimes live in civilized areas, most prefer living in eyries, that is, nests made from elaborately woven reeds and grass, far from the claustrophobic confines of human cities and villages. The Zephyr are typically high-strung and sensitive by nature. The Zephyr actually get along quite well with other species, and the other species admire the Zephyr for their beauty, their grace, and their singing voices. However, the Zephyr do dislike reptiles and snakes, and anything that resembles a reptile or a snake, or is partly one of these sorts of creatures. They are not able to wear armor of any sort, although they can be successful as warriors. If they stick to short bows, javelins, and slings, they are more like ranged combatants. Now, when it comes to the racial abilities, they have a bonus in charisma and perception related saves. They also have a bonus when making saves related to dexterity. This bonus is greater when they are flying. And they also have a bonus when using missile weapons. And they can fly, of course, and they have keen eyesight. They are very dexterous, they have high speed, intelligence, charisma, and perception. They are only weak in terms of strength, constitution, and a bit in willpower, just a little bit. Their professions include Enchanter, Harley Quinn, Shaman, Necromancer, and Rogue. Next we have details on professions. In this role-playing game there are 32 professions, 39 if you count professional variants. These are like character classes in other role-playing games. You have single-classed and dual-classed professions. Single-classed professions are more specialized or narrow in their approach, but they level up faster. And dual-classed professions are more versatile, more flexible when it comes to the things that you can do being a member of a dual-classed profession, but they take a bit longer to level up. Each profession has a combat rating. You are either untrained, skilled, or highly trained, and the bonus to hit and hit points will be related to your level of training in combat. You also have information on alignment. Some professions need to follow a specific alignment or code. You also have information on the minimum attributes to qualify for that profession. You also have special abilities concerning different professions, their skills. Now when it comes to the attacks that you can make, if you are not trained in combat, you will only be able to make one attack per round. But those that are skilled enough will be able to make an additional attack as they level up, and those that are highly trained in combat may even make up to 3 attacks depending on the character. So you have a list of combat bonuses. Depending on your level of combat training, they will go up as you level up in character level, but those that are untrained in combat will not level up at all when it comes to their chance to better hit an enemy. I think this is a good mechanic because sometimes spellcasters in other role-playing games sometimes become just too formidable with good combat bonuses, but also the ability to cast incredibly powerful spells. I really like this profession and race combinations chart. It's very useful. It tells you the profession, if it's single or dual classed, its combat rating, the valid races that you can choose for each profession, and the spells that that profession uses, the spell disciplines. We will talk about those when I cover the section about magic and advanced practices. Now let's take a look at each of these professions. First we have the Alchemist. This is a single-classed, untrained character profession. You need to have decent intelligence and willpower to qualify for this profession. When it comes to special abilities, you have things such as locate rare earths. This is exclusive to the Alchemist. There is another profession with a similar ability, but it's not as good when compared to the full-time Alchemist. You also have things such as projection of will. We will talk about some of these special abilities and skills when I cover that section in the review. When it comes to skills, you have many, such as Analyze Mixtures, Naturalism, Read Magic with a percentage of success. You have Alchemical Devices, Venoms and Poisons, Potions, Alchemical Dusts, and at the highest levels you could even create golems, alchemical machines, and even a homunculus. So alchemists in this game are not spellcasters. They are more like scientists. They are able to utilize scientific principles and the metaphysical ability known as projection of will to create substances which have magical properties. Next we have the Assassin. This is a dual-classed, skilled profession. You need to be evil, or at least neutral if allowed by the game judge. This class specializes in killing, of course, so your minimum attributes are dexterity, speed, intelligence, and perception to qualify for this profession. When it comes to your special abilities, you have an improved save related to speed, another improved save roll related to perception, and this gets better and better as you level up. And of course you have the Assassinate special ability. It can basically allow you to kill any character with just a single attack, but you need to fulfill its conditions. You can learn more about that in the skills and special abilities section. When it comes to skills, you have things such as Catwalk, Evade, Pursuit, Stealth. You can be skilled at using different weapons, Toxic Powders, Martial Arts, and Venoms and Poisons, of course. Assassins are dual-classed martial artist spies who specialize in various covert activities and the killing of individuals for pay. Sometimes they are members of a secret society or cult, but nothing is stopping you from working on your own. You also have information on the fees for assassinations, so if you want to make some extra money while at the city or town, here's your information to charge for your grim tasks. Then we have the Astrologer. This is a single-classed, untrained profession. You need to follow a patron deity for this class and your alignment must match that deity. When it comes to your minimum attributes, you must be intelligent, you must have great willpower and perception. Concerning your special abilities, you have things such as literacy and spellcasting astrology. This is a magical discipline. When it comes to your skills, you have chirography, read magic, magical mixtures, decipher, scrolls, ancient lore, runes, and at the highest levels you can create powerful magical items. Astrologers are practitioners of the magical field of study known as astrology, and they are skilled in the arts of divination and interpretation of signs and events. They are accomplished scribes and linguists. Astrologers are often sought after for their advice and counsel. They are perhaps the most scholarly members of the spellcasting professions. Now, the different skills that you can use for each profession are obtained as you level up. Not all of them are available during the lower levels. Next, we have the Beastmaster. The Beastmaster is a single-classed, highly trained profession. You can be any alignment as long as you are also neutral. You must be strong, you must have lots of willpower and charisma to qualify for this profession. When it comes to special abilities, you can influence animals, and you also have animal languages. This is all about gathering animal allies. When it comes to skills, you have Evade Pursuit, Stalking, Snares, Weapon Skills, Herb Lore, and Herbal Remedies. These are just some of its skills. Beastmasters are an unusual class of characters that possess the ability to communicate with and influence animals of different types. It is said that some Beastmasters acquired their abilities by chance, lost or abandoned in the wilds. A child will occasionally be raised by animals and thus learn their ways. However, other Beastmasters learn their skills from others. Usually, the skills of a Beastmaster are very carefully guarded and are passed down by specific families. Next, we have information on the Bounty Hunter. This is a dual-classed profession, and it is skilled in combat. To be a bounty hunter, you need to be strong, dexterous, you need high constitution, decent intelligence, and perception as well. When it comes to special abilities, you have Assassinate, similar to the Assassin, and you also have Waylay. And these abilities get better as you level up. When it comes to skills, you have Hide in Shadows, Read Tracks, Stealth, Stalking, Interrogate, Infiltrate, Decipher, and you're skilled in the use of weapons as well. These are just some of its skills. Bounty Hunters are dual-classed hunter-spies who track down and capture or kill individuals for pay. While the more notorious of these characters will often work as paid killers, most bounty hunters prefer the option of taking their prey alive, due to the additional money which live prisoners usually command. You also have information on how to charge for your bounty hunter services. Next we have the Charlatan. This is a single-classed profession, and it is skilled in combat. To be a Charlatan, you need to have good dexterity, intelligence, and willpower. When it comes to your special abilities, you have Detect Conjuration, Detect Illusion, spellcasting based on enchantments. However, when it comes to the spellcasting capabilities of the Charlatan, they are limited. You are basically casting spells at the lowest level possible, just enough to deceive people. You have a Jack of all trades sort of repertoire. When it comes to skills, you have things such as Legerdemain, Thieves' Cant, Read Magic, Toxic Powders, Filters, Scrolls, and you can also train in the use of some weapons. This profession reminds me of Cudgel from the Dying Earth. Charlatans are magician rogues who possess little in the way of true magical ability. Generally speaking, most charlatans have more than enough intelligence for magical study, but lack the dedication or willpower to excel in any one magical field. Next we have the Corsair. Dual-classed and skilled, this profession needs several requirements. You need to be neutral or evil. And when it comes to your attributes, you need strength, dexterity, and intelligence. So you need to make sure that your character is high on those attributes. When it comes to special abilities, you have Backstab, you're a professional sailor, and Waylay. When it comes to skills, you have Appraise, Treasure, Swimming, Street Fighting, Thieves' Cant. You have Thieving and Combat skills, Navigation, Cartography. Corsairs are dual-classed rogue warriors who ply their trade upon the oceans and waterways of the world. As the buccaneers of the sailing world, they are the scourge of merchants and sea traders alike. Their vessels have even been known to raid small coastal villages and towns on occasion. Next we have the Druid. The Druid is a single-classed profession, untrained in combat, and you need to be neutral in your alignment, any neutral alignment. When it comes to your attributes, you need intelligence, willpower, and charisma. When it comes to special abilities, you have things such as the Sylvan language, animal languages, literacy, pass without trace, and you can shape change into animal forms. Your spellcasting is based on elemental magic. When it comes to skills, you have herb lore, survival, you can choose a weapon skill, herbal elixirs, runes, scrolls, greater magic items. Druids are practitioners of elemental magic and have a great reverence for all living things. Most worship the old gods, or the powerful spirit beings known as the true elementals, and are generally contemptuous in the workings of civilized men. For this reason, Druids will only live in wilderness areas, solemnly tending their sacred groves and erecting great stone monuments and temples to their ancient gods. Next we have the Enchanter, a dual-class profession that is skilled in combat. When it comes to attributes, you need dexterity, intelligence, charisma, and perception. Your special abilities are spellcasting based on enchantment. You can also be a musician and an artist. When it comes to your skills, you have Legerdemain, you have Read Magic, you can choose a weapon skill, you have acrobatics, acting, and you can create rods, staves, and wands. These are just some of the abilities and skills of the Enchanter. Enchanters are dual-classed Harley Quinn magicians. They are among the most unusual of the many classes of spellcasters. Through their unique studies, these individuals are able to acquire a number of aesthetic talents and skills. I will talk about the different magical disciplines when I get to that section of the review, but for now, you can consider enchanting or enchantments as a sort of illusion-based discipline. Next we have Gladiator. This is a single class profession, highly trained in combat. You can even attack several times, up to 3 times, in the highest levels of power. A lot of the professions can attack more than once as they level up, but only specific ones get to attack, for example, 3 times or even twice. It depends on the profession. When it comes to the attributes that you need to be a gladiator, you need strength, dexterity, and speed. When it comes to your special abilities, you have a bonus when making saves based on strength and constitution. Your constitution saves increase as you level up. Now when it comes to skills, you have boxing, you can train in various weapon and combat skills, you have wrestling, you're completely specialized in combat. Gladiators are professional fighters trained in a variety of weapon and weaponless combat techniques. As they are trained primarily in the art of close quarters combat, gladiators are initially restricted from gaining proficiency in any missile weapon except the throwing net. They may learn how to use other missile weapons after attaining level 2. Gladiators may not wear any type of armor that is heavier or more restricting than studded leather while wrestling or boxing, without incurring the standard non-proficiency penalty for all attacks and maneuvers. We will talk about that when I cover combat. Next we have the Harley Quinn. This is a single-classed profession, skilled in combat. To be a Harley Quinn, you need good dexterity, intelligence, charisma, and perception. When it comes to special abilities, you can be either an artist or a musician. You also have the Many Masks special ability. When it comes to skills, you have acrobatics, music, oratory, juggling, legerdemain. You can pick many different skills, and you are also quite skilled at throwing knives. Harlequins are actors and performers of exceptional versatility. They are most often found working with repertory groups or with traveling stage troupes, circuses, etc. Those who prefer to work alone will often seek employment as storytellers, minstrels, or jugglers, performing in marketplaces and other areas where crowds of people are likely to gather. Next we have the Hunter. This is a single-class profession, highly trained in combat. You need good strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, and perception to qualify as a hunter. When it comes to your special abilities, you have a bonus when making saves related to perception, and these get better as you level up, and you also have animal languages. When it comes to skills, you have archery, of course. You know how to handle other weapons. You have tracking, stalking, survival. You also have herb lore and herbal remedies. Hunters are highly trained fighters, skilled in the arts of tracking, wood lore, and survival. Though found in both civilized and uncivilized areas, the best hunters are often those who hail from barbarian, nomadic, or tribal clans. Next we have the Mage. This is a dual-classed profession, untrained in combat. You need good intelligence, willpower, and perception for this profession. When it comes to special abilities, you have literacy and spellcasting, which includes astrology plus one other discipline of your choice. When it comes to skills, you have chirography, magical mixtures, you can train in weapons, you have decipher ancient lore, and you can create greater magic items. So Magi are dual-classed spellcasters whose primary field of study is astrology. Their secondary field is either divine magic, enchantment, or high magic. All possess the same basic skills, but differ substantially in motivation, alignment, and special abilities. So for example, an archmage is skilled when casting spells related to astrology and enchantment. A Kabbalist knows how to cast spells related to astrology and high magic, and a magus or magus casts spells of the astrology and divine magic fields. You have some additional abilities depending on these specializations, like for example, the Kabbalist can be an evoker when it comes to special abilities, and a magus can turn undead. Next we have the Magician, a single-class profession, untrained in combat. You need good intelligence, willpower, and perception for this profession. When it comes to special abilities, you have Detect Conjuration, Detect Illusion, and Spellcasting Enchantment. When it comes to skills, you have Read Magic, you can train in the use of weapons, you have Toxic Powders, Potions, Greater Magic items, and you can even create magical weapons and armor. Magicians are practitioners of enchantment, a field of magical study most closely associated with illusion and conjuration. As magicians are single-class characters, their choice of spells is initially quite limited, especially when compared to dual-classed spellcasters, such as wizards, sorcerers, and witches. There are advantages when it comes to focusing in your own area of expertise, of course, so try to concentrate your actions within that field. Next, we have the martial artist, a single-classed profession, highly trained in combat. Most are neutral, but you can be of any alignment. When it comes to minimum attributes, you need to be strong, dexterous, you need to be fast, intelligent, and you need willpower. When it comes to special abilities, you get a bonus when making saves related to speed, willpower, and perception. Speed saving throws become better and better as you level up. When it comes to skills, you have acrobatics, martial arts, of course. You can train in weapons, any combat or performance skill, paired weapon, almost everything completely focused in being an agile fighter. Martial artists are practitioners of the ancient arts of weaponless combat and self-defense. They usually obtain their abilities by studying under a skilled master. After that, we have the monk, a dual-classed profession skilled in combat, but not as skilled as the martial artist. When it comes to your minimum attributes, you need strength, dexterity, speed, intelligence, and willpower. When it comes to your special abilities, you have bonuses when making saves related to speed, willpower, and perception, which gets better as you level up, and you also have spellcasting mysticism. That's why you're not as skilled in combat as the full-time martial artist. You develop some time in learning mysticism. So you have skills such as acrobatics, martial arts, read magic, the use of weapons, archery, and Zen archery. Monks are dual-classed martial artist mystics, whose studies combine the arts of weaponless combat with the mental and magical disciplines of mysticism. When it comes to mysticism, just to give you a preview of what it is, if you wanted to create a psyker or psychic user sort of character, mysticism is for you. Next, we have the mystic. This is a single-classed, untrained in combat profession. Most are neutral, but you can be of any alignment. You need to be intelligent, you need high willpower and perception. When it comes to your special abilities, you have a bonus in saves related to intelligence, willpower, and perception. Both willpower and perception will become stronger. That is, your saving throw bonus will go up as you level up in power. You also have spellcasting mysticism, of course, and you can turn undead. When it comes to skills, you have herb lore, read magic, the use of weapon, herbal elixirs, holy items, and you can also create greater magic items later on. Like I said, this feels like a psionicist sort of character, but also you have some traits or trappings related to the Eastern spellcaster. And unlike other spellcasters, you obtain your power from ki, from your life force, not from some sort of deity type source of power. Next, we have the Necromancer. I really like the Necromancer in this role-playing game. It is a single-classed, untrained in combat profession. However, you need to be lawful evil or chaotic evil in alignment. You need high intelligence, that's it. When it comes to special abilities, you have a bonus when making saves related to death and charisma. Your death saving throw goes up as you gain powers. Then you have literacy. You need a patron on the lower planes, and you have spellcasting black magic. You can also turn undead. When it comes to skills, you have read magic. You can train in weapons in a subtle way or in a minimal way. You have toxic powders, venoms, poisons, the use of rods, staves, and wands. And you can also perform greater necromantic rituals and create greater magic items. Necromancers are practitioners of black magic and are among the most evil of spellcasters. Most have a morbid fascination of death and spend much of their time in graveyards, burial grounds, and catacombs, seeking to commune with creatures and beings from the lower planes. Though limited in the types of spells which they may initially learn, necromancers may gain great power, but only through the most dangerous and vile means. Now, the thing with necromancers in this role-playing game is that they cannot be brought back to life if they get killed. However, every time they get killed, that is the only time they get killed, they will always return to unlife. That is, depending on their power level, they could turn into a skeleton, a zombie, a phantom, a vampire, a spectre, or even a lich. which is called a Yatu in this role-playing game. And you cannot level up, you cannot obtain experience points until you exact vengeance on your killer. But once you accomplish that, you are now playing as an undead player character. Next we have the Paladin, another very interesting profession for this game, or class. You are a dual-classed, highly trained profession. You must be lawful good or lawful evil, that is, you could be a Paladin of evil. You need high strength, intelligence, and willpower to qualify as a Paladin. When it comes to special abilities, you have a bonus against all combat-related effects when it comes to saving throws. You are the only profession that can cast spells while wearing armor. When it comes to fear, you are immune to it. You have literacy, and depending on your choice of spellcasting, which is divine magic or low magic, you could get a power animal. This is a spiritual animal companion that is related to, for example, the animal companions of other spellcasting classes attuned to nature. So if you want to be a paladin of nature, you can have that with low magic. That is low as in earthly magic. When it comes to skills, you have mounted combat, read magic, you can be skilled in several weapons, and paladins are spiritual warriors sworn to carry out the will of a patron deity or spirit here in the material world. They live by strict codes of honor to their calling, although evil paladins show no honor to those not affiliated with their faith, and hold their offices with pride. A paladin's life centers around devotion to his or her patron, and any action undertaken at the deity or spirit's behest will be performed in deadly earnest. This is one difficult profession to play as, because you follow a very strict code of conduct. In other role-playing games, you just need to follow particular teachings of your faith or deity, but here there are some universal principles. For example, the paladin cannot retreat from battle. I repeat, you cannot retreat from battle. If you do that or offend your deity or your teachings in some way, you lose your powers. Not all of them, it depends on the offense. But for example, let's say that you need to make a tactical retreat. Maybe you are not getting any bonuses to your save against combat related effects until you avenge yourself or seek some sort of redemption. It depends on the situation. Maybe you do not help someone that needs help depending on your deity's teaching, and now you are no longer immune to fear. So you are going to be gradually losing your powers and recovering them depending on your transgressions. Next we have the priest profession. It is a single-classed, untrained profession, and you need to have an alignment similar to your patron deity. When it comes to attributes, you need intelligence and willpower. When it comes to special abilities, you can convert others to your faith. You have literacy and spellcasting focusing in divine magic, and you can turn undead. When it comes to skills, you are learned in any arts and sciences you can choose. You have read magic, you have the possibility of training in weapons, you have theology, holy items, you can create golems and create greater magic items and magical weapons and armor. Priests are practitioners of divine magic and are completely devoted to their patron deity and religious beliefs. Priests almost always consider their actions as inspired or directed in some way by their deity and will constantly work to further their ideas and philosophy. Next we have the rogue, a single-class profession, skilled in combat. You can be of any alignment, but most are neutral or evil. You need good dexterity, speed, and intelligence for this profession. When it comes to your special abilities, you have a bonus when making saves related to perception. You have backstab and waylay, which gets better as you level up. You also have skills such as stealth, con, lockpicking, pickpocket. You can be skilled in many things, including the use of weapons. Rogues are the subtlest of felons and are adept in a variety of covert and illegal activities. As their minimum attribute requirements might suggest, these individuals are a cut above the more common variety of thieves and hoodlums in both ability and intelligence. Next we have the savant, a dual-class profession untrained in combat. You need good intelligence and willpower. You have special abilities such as literacy, turn undead, and you also have some other things depending on your choice. You have skills such as read magic, the use of weapons, you have holy items, some related skills and minor magic items, anything related to scholarly pursuits, and some spellcasting particulars such as the creation of greater magic items. Savants are dual-classed individuals who combine the virtues of the scholar profession with the practice of either divine magic or mysticism. So for example, you can be a divine savant and you have special abilities such as convert and spellcasting focusing on divine magic. When it comes to related skills, that is the skills that you can take depending on your specialization, you have ancient lore, healing arts, herb lore, herbal elixirs, music, inventing. If you choose to be a mystic savant, that is using spellcasting focusing on mysticism, you have the related skills of ancient lore, archery, healing arts, zen archery, survival, stalking. So this class is very versatile, very flexible. Next, we have the scholar. This is a single-classed, untrained profession. You need to be intelligent and you need willpower to qualify for this class or profession. Your special abilities are literacy and you are scholarly. When it comes to your skills, you are highly proficient at using pretty much any skill. You may lack spellcasting abilities, you may not be the best of fighters, but when it comes to any skill available, you are the best. Scholars are learned individuals who can acquire a wide variety of skills and abilities. Though they may initially be proficient only in the arts and sciences, scholars of the third level of ability and above may choose to acquire any skills they desire. These learning professionals acquire skills at an astounding rate. Scholars may, of course, also acquire additional skills by expending experience. Next, we have the Shaman. This is a single-classed, untrained profession. You need to be intelligent, you need willpower and perception to qualify. When it comes to special abilities, you have a bonus in your perception-related saves, and this improves as you level up. You also have the power animal. It's sort of like a spiritual animal companion. You can see into the spirit realm, and you can cast low magic, and you have spirit binding as well. When it comes to skills, you have herb lore. You can train in weapons. You have herbal remedies, toxic powders, magical mixtures, runes. You can create rods, staves, many magical items. You can also stock. Shamans are practitioners of low magic, a field of study based upon the earliest and most primitive forms of spirit and sympathetic magic. Among their own people, shamans are both feared and respected, usually serving in the capacity of wizard priests. Then we have the Sorcerer. This is a dual-classed, untrained profession. You need intelligence and willpower for this one. Your special abilities are literacy and spellcasting, sorcery, plus another one that you choose. When it comes to skills, you have naturalism, magical mixtures, scrolls, alchemical dusts, machina, you can create devices and automata, magical weapons, and armor. Sorcerers are dual-classed spellcasters who approach the study of magic from a scientific and analytical point of view. Their major field of study is sorcery, with their secondary field being either enchantment or black magic. Next, we have the Spy. This is a single-classed skilled profession. You need attributes of dexterity, intelligence, perception, and charisma to qualify for this one. When it comes to your special abilities, you gain a bonus when it comes to perception-based saving rolls, and this goes up as you level up. You also have waylay. When it comes to skills, you have acting, evade pursuit, lip reading, lockpicking. You can be skilled in the use of weapons, interrogate, forgery, traps, decipher. Spies are specialists in the practice of subterfuge, espionage, and undercover operations. Secretive by nature, most spies use various aliases and disguises to keep their true identities from being discovered. Next, we have the Thaumaturge. This is a dual-classed, untrained profession. When it comes to the attributes that you need to qualify, you need intelligence, willpower, and perception. When it comes to your special abilities, you have literacy and spellcasting based on enchantment. You have skills such as analyze mixtures, horticulture, read magic, herb lore, create potions, venoms and poisons, alchemical dusts, golems as well. You can also create aquavitae and homunculi at the highest level. Thaumaturges are dual-classed magician alchemists and practitioners of the esoteric field of study known as thaumaturgy. Though related in certain respects to the more traditional discipline of alchemy, the practice of thaumaturgy entails the use of magic to replicate the most advanced alchemical procedures. Next we have the warrior, single-classed, highly trained profession. You need to be strong, that's it. That is, in order to qualify. When it comes to special abilities, you have a bonus when you save in strength-related situations. This improves as you level up, and you also have the professional soldier special ability. Now, when it comes to your skills, they are completely focused on the use of weapons, combat skills. You have some opportunity to gain other skills, but it's mostly focused on melee combat, ranged combat, any sort of battle situation. Warriors are the most common of the highly trained fighting professions and are found in most types of civilized and uncivilized cultures. As they are single-class characters specializing only in combat, warriors advance rapidly in level of ability and can gain multiple attacks at an earlier stage when compared to other highly trained classes. It is relatively easy for a warrior to advance in ranks when it comes to enlisting or working for someone, so as you level up you obtain ranks of private, infantryman, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, etc. Next we have the witch, a dual-classed untrained profession. You need intelligence and willpower for this profession. Special abilities include literacy, pass without trace, and spellcasting based on elemental magic plus another discipline. When it comes to your skills, you have herb lore, herbal remedies, read magic, create filters, venoms, poisons, potions, runes, greater magic items. Witches are powerful dual-classed spellcasters who practice elemental magic. Popularly depicted as being evil in nature, witches may be of any alignment. Good witches practice enchantment as their secondary school, while evil witches practice black magic. Neutrally aligned witches may practice either, but most favor enchantment. Now, an important thing to note is that in order to create more flavor and reality for the professions, the different titles and names of the professions change depending on whether your character is male or female. But in the case of the witch, both male and female are known as witches. Warlocks are actually considered oathbreakers, as the name implies, when it comes to organizations or groups of witches. Then we have the witch hunter, a dual-classed skill profession. You need strength and dexterity, intelligence, willpower, and perception to qualify for this one. Your special abilities include literacy and spellcasting based on mysticism. Your skills are read magic, read tracks, stealth, the use of weapons, tracking, tailing. Witch hunters are dual-classed hunter mystics and are perhaps the most unusual individuals of the fantasy world. Though some of these characters may be associated with some sort of group, most prefer to work independently, accepting only such work as they see fit. You even have information on how to charge for your witch hunter services. And in a sense, because of your prowess in combat and your spellcasting ability based on mysticism, you act a bit like a warrior monk of sorts. Next we have the witch doctor, a dual-classed untrained profession. You need to be evil to qualify for this profession. You need intelligence, willpower, and perception. When it comes to your special abilities, you have a patron of the lower planes. You can see into the spirit realm, and your spellcasting is based on black magic and low magic. Your skills are herb lore, toxic powders, survival, venoms and poisons, runes, minor magic items. Witch doctors are dual-class practitioners of black and low magic, so they are a sort of necromancer shaman. Like necromancers, they are evil in nature, and must declare allegiance to either the race of demons or the race of devils in order to acquire magical abilities. Next we have the wizard, a dual-classed untrained profession. You need to be intelligent and you need willpower for this one. When it comes to your special abilities, you have literacy and spellcasting based on high magic plus another discipline. Your skills are magical mixtures, read magic, filters, create filters, potions, scrolls, rods, staves, wands, greater magic items, aquavitae, golems, and homunculi. Wizards are dual-classed spellcasters and practitioners of more traditional forms of ritual magic. Their primary field of study is high magic, and they may choose either enchantment or black magic as their secondary field. Like sorcerers, non-wizards often apply a prefix to the profession. They could be dark or light wizards, depending upon the nature of the wizard in question. And these are all of the professions. As you can see, some are really specialized, some others are more flexible, and some are a bit difficult to integrate into a group, like for example the Necromancer or the Witch Doctor. Maybe if you are attacking a particular enemy of those professions, like for example in the case of Witch Doctor, maybe you are attacking some enemy devils or demons that are in conflict with the beings of the lower planes that the Witch Doctor is aligned or acts as an ally for, then you could integrate the Witch Doctor into a party, of course. Then we have information on alignment. This is pretty standard when it comes to fantasy role-playing games. You have lawful good, neutral, chaotic, lawful evil. So anyone familiar with the classic alignment system is going to understand how his or her character is going to act based on these alignments. Next we have information on background. This adds a lot more flavor and some other skills to your player character. You can even obtain some contacts. It's also important to note that even though you have some skills determined by your profession and your background, you can obtain other skills later on as you are leveling up by spending experience points in certain extracurricular activities. The backgrounds are aristocrat. Aristocrats are familiar with the finer and gentler aspects of civilization and are generally able to read and write. They have contacts within the aristocratic folk, of course, the artisans. They have skills such as diplomacy, literacy, language. You have the barbarian background. Barbarians have been raised in barbaric primitive cultures, of course. The predominant terrain with which the individual is familiar should be noted. So you have contacts amongst the members of other tribes, druids, scouts, shamans, trappers. When it comes to your skills, you have such things as craft, hunting, riding, survival. You also have city dweller as a background. City folk are familiar with most of the basic aspects of life in a large city or township. You have contacts perhaps within the members of guilds or merchants. You also have skills such as drinking, gambling, haggling, streetwise. Then you have the outcast background. Outcasts have formerly associated with beggars, criminals, enemies of the church or state, escaped slaves, thieves. So you have contacts in the fringe areas of society, the underworld, the black market. You also have skills such as craft, drinking, streetwise, street fighting, thieves' cant. Then you also have the villager background. Villagers have been raised in smaller settlements, and you must determine the type of village where they were raised, perhaps a fishing village or a farm. When it comes to your contacts, you have contacts within the craftsmen, peddlers, local villagers of various types. When it comes to your skills, you have barter, basic seamanship, craft, language. Next we have information on Renown. Renown is a measure of a character's fame and reputation. At the beginning, your character starts with a small amount of Renown points, but as you accomplish different valiant, amazing, heroic or sinister deeds, you will gain more Renown, and this fame could get you into trouble or into some positive situations depending on the place that you are moving through and how they consider your feats or your daring acts to be. Maybe they consider them to be quite honorable, remarkable, but in other places those same acts could be considered despicable. When it comes to attributes, you divide a number of randomly determined points between your 8 mental and physical attributes. Attributes may not be assigned a score less than 6, and you must take into consideration the racial maximum and the professional minimum. Physical attributes, all of them are pretty self-explanatory, just like the mental attributes. You have strength, that represents the character's physical power and capacity for lifting or carrying. You have dexterity, representing the character's agility, coordination, deftness. You have speed, representing how quick your character is to act or to move. You also have constitution, which represents the character's physical toughness, health, conditioning, endurance. Now, one interesting detail that will be further explained when I talk about combat is that a save versus speed may be substituted for any save versus dexterity when dodging or eluding an attack. However, when you are using this option, it is considered as if you are attempting to flee from the attack or threat, and because of that you cannot attack the following combat round. Then we have mental attributes. There's intelligence, which represents the character's powers of reason and his or her ability to retain information and knowledge. There's also will, which represents the character's willpower, mental toughness, faith, wisdom. We also have charisma, representing the character's persuasiveness and presence. Then we have perception, which represents the character's degree of sensory awareness. You have information as well on how to generate non-player characters quickly. That is determining their attribute points, their professional minimum, absolute minimum, racial maximum, etc. You also have information on bonuses for high attributes. I think I forgot to mention something at the beginning of professions. I mentioned that skilled and highly trained characters in combat, they gain a bonus to attack rolls when they are leveling up. They also gain a bonus to damage rolls, so melee specialists are going to be dealing a lot of damage at the higher levels. Now back to the bonuses for high attributes. When it comes to strength, it provides a bonus to the damage dealt by the character's melee attacks. When it comes to dexterity, it provides a bonus on all 2-hit rolls in combat. This includes both melee and missile weapon attacks. There's Constitution, which provides a bonus to the number of hit points a character receives each level as they advance. There's also Intelligence, which provides a bonus to intelligence-based skills, such as Analyze Mixtures, Camouflage, Decipher. Then there's Charisma. There are 4 charisma-based skills that receive a bonus on chance of success, which are Acting, Con, Infiltrate, and Oratory. Then there's Perception, which allows a character to detect the presence of invisible objects and or creatures as long as they take time to examine their surroundings. So it applies to some skills such as Forgery, Read Tracks, Snares, Tailing. You also have information on hit points, of course. Now, all characters based on their professions obtain several hit points as they level up. In this game, even spellcasters have more hit points when compared to other spellcasters in other role-playing games, but here skilled fighters and highly trained fighters do have an advantage in terms of hit points as they level up. Then there's details on healing. Individuals heal naturally at the rate of 1 hit point per level per day, and total rest heals you even more. A variety of spells and substances can also be used to speed up the healing process. Then we have information on saving throws. All saving throws or saves are made by rolling a d20. For creatures of any kind, all saves are rolled against an attribute. And in all cases where a save is required, a roll of 11 or more indicates a complete success. Thus, the average individual has a 50% chance of success on any save. This simple rule makes it easy for the game judge to determine saves for any non-player character or monster that needs to be added to an adventure at any moment. And there are several factors which can also modify saves, such as abilities of the different professions, some magical bonuses, and attributes as well. They provide related bonuses based on the save versus attribute. Now, during the game, there could be several effects and circumstances that can modify the bonuses for these saving rolls, so it's important to keep it in mind. You also have information on life and death. If an individual is wounded and reduced to 0 or less hit points, he or she is unconscious. The game judge rolls a secret save versus constitution for the character. A success indicates that the character will regain consciousness in a few minutes and regain 1 hit point. But failure indicates that after a few minutes the character will perish. Only the game judge knows the condition of an unconscious individual. And as an optional rule, if your character is reduced to -10 hit points, the character automatically dies. You also have information on saves for inanimate objects, using common sense, basing the save on the quality of the item, if it is magical or not. Obviously, higher quality goods and magical items will have a higher probability of surviving different disasters and hazards. You also have information on how to determine encumbrance based on strength. Everything that you are carrying that is armor and some objects in your hand usually do not count against your encumbrance, although there are some exceptions, like for example very heavy armor. And of course, if you carry too much, your dexterity, speed and movement rate will be reduced. So you have information how to calculate encumbrance, the wealth of your character, how you start out. Maybe you start out flourishing or prospering, or maybe you are quite poor. You also have a table to convert money from copper pieces to silver, from silver to gold, and gold to platinum. Then you have information on experience points. I really like this aspect of this role-playing game. Arcanum allows you to play your character however you like. If you prefer to sneak around the different dangerous sites without killing enemies, it is possible to obtain experience by avoiding or deactivating traps, saving, rescuing or aiding a non-player character, acquiring treasure, turning undead, converting individuals to your faith, inscribing scrolls, creating magic items, concocting magical creations, so you do not have to murder everyone in the dungeon. You can also obtain experience from influencing individuals, binding spirits into service. During periods of relative inactivity, characters can actually gain experience points through study and practice. And game judges who wish to improve the quality of role-playing in their games can also give you a bonus in experience points for good role-playing. So you can gain experience points by killing every enemy that you encounter, but if you want to play it a bit more safe or less violent, it is possible to level up with a minimum of killing or slaying. Single class characters, like I mentioned, need less experience points to level up, and dual class characters require more experience points because of their various skills. And at the end of this section, you have a sample character creation process. It's effectively a step-by-step tutorial on how to create a character using a sample character throughout the entire method. And truly, this is one of the best character creation sections that you can find in an old school type of role-playing game.